وصلي على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. The death of the best mankind. This is our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The journey to Allah, the Sublime. Symptoms of farewell. When the call to Islam grew complete, the new faith dominated. Allah's Messenger started to develop a certain grave symptoms. They could be perceived through his statement and deeds. In Ramadan, in the 10th year of Al-Hijrah, he secluded himself for 20 days in contrast to 10 as was in progress previously. Angel Gabriel revealed the one twice with him as against once in a year. His words in the farewell pilgrimage is al-Wida. إني لا أدري لا ألقاكم بعد عام هذا بهذا موقف أبدا. I do not know whether I will ever meet you at this place this year. The revelation of Surah Al-Nasr in the days of Al-Tashriq. When it was revealed to him, he realized that it was the parting time and that the surah was an announcement of his approaching death. During the early days of Safar in the 11th year of Al-Hijrah, the Prophet went out to Uhud and observed a farewell prayer for the martyrs. It looked like he was saying goodbye to both the dead and the living. He then ascended the pulpit and addressed. He was saying, إني فرتكم وإني شاهد عليكم وإني والله لأنظر إلى الهود الآن وإني أعطيت مفاتيح الخزائن أرض ومفاتيح أرض وإني والله ما أخاف أن تشركوا ببعدي ولكني أخاف عليكم أن تنافسوا فيها. To proceed you and I have been made witness upon you by Allah. You will meet me at the Uhud tank. Very soon I have been given the keys of the treasures of the earth, or the keys of the earth. But I do not fear for you that you will turn to after me. I do not fear that you will compete each other in acquiring the worldly riches. One day at midnight he went to Al-Baqi cemetery and begged Allah to forgive the martyrs of Islam. He said, "Peace be upon you, O inhabitants of the grave. The morning that dawns upon you is more relieving than that which dawns upon the living. Afflictions are approaching like cloudy lamps of a dark night, the last of which follows the first. The last one is bearing more evil than the first." He comforted them, saying, "We are also coming to you, the start of the disease, on Monday, the 29th of Safar, in the 11th year of Al-Hijrah. He participated in the funeral rites in Al-Baqi. On the way back, he had a headache. His temperature rose so high that the heat could be felt over his headband. He led the Muslims in prayer for 11 days. Although he was sick, the number of his sick days was either 13 or 14. The last week, when his sickness grew severe, he used to ask his wives, "Where shall I stay tomorrow? Where shall I stay?" They understood that what he wanted, so they allowed him to stay wherever he wished. He went to Aisha's room while he was leaning on Al-Fadl bin Abbas and Ali bin Abi Talib, head-banded as he was. He dragged his feet till he came into her room. It was there that he spent the last week of his life. During that period, Allah used to recite Al-Mu'awwidat, chapters 113 and 114 of the Quran, another supplication already taught by him, and after blowing her breath on them, move her hands on his body for blessings. 5 days before death. On Wednesday, 5 days before he died, the Prophet's temperature rose very high, signaling the severity of his disease. He fainted and suffered from pain. "Pour out on me 7 Qarab water skin pots of various water wells, that I may go out to meet people and talk to them." He said, so they seated him in a container and poured water on him till he said, "This is enough, that is enough, that is enough, that is enough." Then he felt well to enter the mosque. He entered it with his head wrapped, sat on the pulpit and gave a speech to the people who were gathering together around him. He said, "لعنة الله على اليهود والنصارى اتخذوا قبور أنبيائهم مساجدا." The curse of Allah falls upon the Jews and Christians, for they have made their prophet graves a place of worship. Then he said, لا تتخذوا قبري وثنا يعبد. Not make my grave a worshipped idol. Then he offered himself and invited people to pay any injuries he might have inflicted on them, saying, "Man kuntu جللته له دهرا فهذا دهري فليستنكد منه من كنت شتمت له إردا فهذا إردي فليستنكد منه whom I have ever lashed his back, I offer him my battle, he may avenge himself on me. Whom I have ever insulted his honor, here I am offering my honor, so that he may avenge himself. Then he descended and performed the noon prayer. Again he returned to the pulpit and sat on it. He resumed his first speech about the enmity and some other things. A man then said, "You owe me 3 dirhams." The Prophet said, "O Fadl, pay him the money." He went on saying, "أوصيكم بالأنصار فإنهم كراشي وأيبتي وقد قدوا والذي عليهم وبقي الذي لهم فأقبلوا من محسنهم وتجوزوا عن مسيئهم." I admonish you to be good to Al-Ansar, the helpers. They are my family, and with them I found shelter. They have acquitted themselves of the responsibility that fell upon them, and now there remains what you have to do. You should fully acknowledge and appreciate the favor that they have shown, and should overlook their faults. هذا version. إن الناس يكثرون وتقل الأنصار حتى يكونوا كالملح في الطعام، فمن ولي منكم أمرا يضر به أحدا أو ينفعه فليقبل من محسنهم ويتجوز عن مسيئهم. The number of believers will increase, but the number of helpers will decrease to the extent that they will be among men as a salt in the food. So he who among you occupies a position of responsibility and is powerful enough to do harm or good to people, he should fully acknowledge and appreciate the favor that these benefactors have shown, and overlook their faults, and said, إن أبدا خيره الله أن يؤتيه من زهرة الدنيا ما شاء ويبرز ما عنده فاختار ما عنده. Allah has given a servant of his the opportunity to make a choice between whatever he desires of Allah's provisions in this world and what he keeps for him in the world, but he has opted for the latter. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, upon hearing that, Abu Bakr cried and said, may our fathers and mothers be ransomed for your sake. We wondered why Abu Bakr said such a thing. People say, look at that old man. Allah talks about a servant of Allah who was granted the right between the best fortunes of this world and the bounty of Allah in the hereafter. But he says, may our fathers and mothers be ransomed for your sake. It was later on that we realized what he meant. Allah was the servant given the choice. We also acknowledge that Abu Bakr was the most learned among us. Then Allah said, Inna آمن الناس علي في صحبتي وماله أبو بكر ولو كنت متقدا خليلا غير ربي لا اتخذت أبا بكر خليلا ولكن أخوه إسلام ومودته ولا ينبغي لا يبقين في المسجد باب إلا شد إلا باب أبي بكر. I am most obliged to Abu Bakr for the favor of his company and property. If I were to make any other Khalidic friend except Allah, I would have chosen Abu Bakr as a friend of mine. But for him I feel affection and brotherhood of Islam. No guilt shall be kept of in the mosque except that of Abu Bakr's. 4 days before his death, and that day 4 days before the death of Allah, he said to people, though he was suffering from severe pain, come here, I will cause you to write something so that you will never fall into error. Upon this, Umar ibn Khattab said, the Prophet of Allah is suffering from acute pain, and you have the Quran with you. The book of Allah is sufficient unto you. Others, however, wanted the writing to be made. When Muhammad heard them debating over it, he ordered them to go away and leave him alone. That he recommended 3 things. 1. Jews, Christians, and Buddhists should be expelled out of Arabia. 2. He recommended that the delegation should be honored and entertained in a way similar to his customs. 3. As for the narrator said that he had forgotten it could have been adherence to the book and the Sunnah. It was likely to be the accomplishment and a mobilization of Osama's army, particularly performance of prayers and being attentive to slaves. In spite of the strain of disease and suffering from pain, The Prophet ﷺ used to lead all the prayers until that 3 4 days before he died. On that day, he led the evening prayer and recited, وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ unfurled by the winds or angels of the messengers of Allah sent forth one another after another. That is Surah 77, verse 1. In the evening, he grew so sick that he could not overcome the strain of disease or go out to enter the mosque. Aisha Radhanana said that the Prophet asked, have the people performed the prayer? No, they haven't. They are waiting for you, but some water in the washing spot. He said we did what he ordered, so he washed and wanted to stand up, but he fainted. When he recovered, he asked again. As the people prayed, then the same sequence of events took place again and again for the second and at that time he washed and fainted after his attempt to stand up. Therefore, he sent a message to Abu Bakr to lead the prayer. Abu Bakr then led the prayers during those days. There were 17 prayers he led in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. The 3 or 4 times Aisha talked to the Prophet ﷺ to excuse Abu Bakr from leading the prayer because of his gentleness. But he refused and said, Innakum sahibu Yusuf muru Abu Bakr falyusalli bin nar. You men are the women of Joseph Yusuf, convey my message to Abu Bakr to lead the prayer a day or two prior to death. On Saturday or on Sunday, the Prophet felt that he was well enough to perform the prayer, so he went out leaning on 2 men in order to perform the noon prayer. But who was then about to lead the prayer, withdrew when he saw him coming. The Prophet made a gesture to stay where he was and said, "Sit me next to him." He set him on the left hand side of the Bakr. The Prophet led the prayer, and Abu Bakr followed him. Raised was at every Allahu Akbar. This Allah is the greatest. The Prophet says so that the people may hear clearly. A day before his death, on Sunday, a day before he died, the Prophet set his slaves free, paid a charity as a charity, the 7 dinars he owned, and gave his weapons as a present to the Muslims. So when night fell, Aisha had to borrow some oil from her neighbor to light her oil lantern. Even his coat of armor was disposed as security to a Jew for 30 sa of barley. The last day he was alive. In narration by Anas bin Malik, he said, while the Muslims were performing the morning prayer on Monday, led by Abu Bakr, they were surprised to see Allah raising the curtains of Aisha's room. He looked at them while they were praying, aligned properly, and smiled cheerfully. Seeing him, Abu Bakr withdrew to join the lines and gave way to him to lead the prayer, for he thought that the Prophet wanted to come for the prayer. But Allah said the Muslims who were praying were delighted that they were almost taken away from the prayers. Allah just as to continue their prayer, went into the room and drew down the curtain. Allah was not alive for the next prayer. In the daytime, Rasulullah called Fatima and told her something in a secret voice that made her cry. Then he whispered to her something else which made her laugh. Fatima inquired from her after the Prophet dead as to this weeping and laughing, so to which Fatima replied, the first time he disclosed to me that he would not recover from his illness, and I wept. Then he told me that I would be the first of his family to join him, so I laughed. He gave Fatima glad tidings that she would become the lady in charge of all the women of the world. Who witnessed the great pain that afflicted her father. So she said, what great pain my father is in. To these words, the Prophet remarked, Laysa ala abika karbun ba'al al-yawm. He will not suffer anymore when today is over. He asked that Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein be brought to him. He kissed them and recommended that they be looked after. He asked to see his wives. They were brought to him. He preached to them and told them to remember Allah. Pain grew so severe that the trace of poison he had at Khaybar came to light. It was so that he said to Aisha, I still feel the painful effect of the fat of that food I tasted at Khaybar. I feel as if death is approaching. He ordered the people to perform the prayers and be attentive to slaves. He repeated it several times. The Prophet breathed his last. When the pangs of death started, Aisha leaned him against her. She used to say, one of Allah's favor to me was that Allah's Messenger died in my house while I was still alive. He died between my chest and neck while he was leaning against me. Allah mixed his saliva with mine at his death. For Abdurrahman bin Abu Bakr came in with a siwak, that is the root of a desert plant used for brushing teeth, in his hand. While I was leaning Allah against me, and as he was looking at the siwak, so I asked him, for I knew that he wanted it. Would you like me to take it for you? He nodded in agreement. I took it and gave it to him, as it was too hard for him. I asked him, shall I soften it for you? He nodded in agreement. So I softened it with my saliva and passed it on his teeth. And eventually he said he brushed his teeth as well as he could. As he could, there was a water pot available at his hand with some water in it. He put his hand in it and wiped his face with it and said, La ilaha illallah, inna lil mawti sakarat. Allah Ustad. There is no God but Allah. Death is full of agonies. As soon as he had finished brushing his teeth, he raised his hand or his finger up, looked upwards to the ceiling, and moved his lips. So Aisha listened to him. She heard him say, with those on whom you have bestowed your grace, with the prophets and the truthful ones, the martyrs and the good doers. O Allah, forgive me and have mercy upon me, and join me with the most exalted companionship on high. Then he repeated the last words 3 times, the most exalted companionship on high. And at the same time his hand came down and he joined the most exalted companions on high. To Allah we turn, and to him we turn back for help and the last support. This event took place late in the morning of Monday, the 12th of the Rabiul in the evening in the 20th of Al-Hijrah. He was 63 years and 4 days old when he died. The companions concerned over the Prophet's death. The great loss news was soon known by everybody in Medina. Dark grief spread on all areas and horizon of Medina. Anas radiallahu anhu said, I have never witnessed a day better or brighter than the day on which Allah came to us, and I have never witnessed a more awful or darker day than that one on which Allah died. When he died, Fatima radiallahu anha said, O Father, who responded to the call of his Lord, O Father, whose abode is paradise, O Father, I announce your death to Gabriel. Umar radiallahu anhu was so stunned that he almost lost consciousness, and he stood before the people addressing them. Some of the hypocrites claim that Allah died. Allah did not die, but went to his Lord in the same way as Moses bin Imran did. He stayed away for 40 nights, but finally came back, though they said he had been dead. By Allah, Allah will come back and he will cut off the hands and legs of those who claim his death. Abu Bakr left his house at Sunha and came forth to the mosque on horseback. At the mosque, he dismounted and entered. He talked to nobody but went on until he entered Aisha's room and went right to where Allah was. The Prophet was covered with a Yemeni mantle. He uncovered his face, leaned over, kissed him, and cried. Then he said, I sacrifice my father and mother for your sake. But Allah will not cause you to die twice. You have just experienced the death that Allah ordered. Then he went out and found Umar talking to people. He said, Umar, be seated. Umar refused to do so. People parted. Umar and came towards Abu Bakr who started a speech saying, أما بعد من كان منكم يعبد محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم فإن محمدا قد مات ومن كان منكم يعبد الله فإن الله حي لا يموت. And now to he who worships Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, you should know that Muhammad is dead, صلى الله عليه وسلم is dead. But he who worships Allah, he is ever living and he never dies. Allah says, وما محمد رسول قد خلت من قبله رسل أفإن مات أو قتل انقلبتم على أعقابكم ومن قبل عاقبه فنذر الله شيء وسجل الله شاكرين. Muhammad sallallahu is no more than a messenger, and indeed many messengers have passed away before him. If he dies or is killed, will you then turn back on your heels as disbelievers? And he who turns back on his heels, not the least harm will he do to Allah. Allah will give reward to those who are grateful. Surah 3 verse 144. Ibn Abbas said, where Allah, it was as if people had never heard this Quranic verse till Abu Bakr recited it as a reminder. So Abu Bakr reciting it till there was no man who did not recite it. Ibn Abbas said that Umar had said, By Allah, as soon as I heard Abu Bakr say it, I fell down. I fell down to the ground. I felt as if my legs had been unable to carry me, so that I collapsed when I heard him say it. Only then did I realize that Muhammad had really died. The burial and farewell preparation to his honorable body. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Dispute about who will succeed him broke out even before having the body of Allah prepared for burial. Lots of argument, discussion, dialogues took place between the helpers and an immigrant in the roofed passage of Bani Saida. Finally, the acknowledged Abu Bakr as the Caliph. They spent the whole night there till it was night. People were so busy with the argument that it was late night, just about dawn of Tuesday. Yet his blessed body was still lying on his bed, covered with a garment. The broom was locked from outside. On Tuesday, his body was washed with his clothes on, but by Al-Abbas, Ali, Al-Fadl, and Qahatam, the two sons of Al-Abbas as well as Sakram. The messengers freed his slave, Usama bin Zayd and Aus bin Khawli. Al-Abbas, Al-Fadl, and Khatam moved his body from side to side. Osama and Shakram poured water. Ali washed him, and Aus leaned him against his chest. The Prophet's treasury was washed 3 times with water and berry leaves. The water came from Gas, Saad bin Khaidama's well in Quba, which the Prophet used to drink from. They shrouded him in 3 white Yemeni cotton sheets with neither a turban nor a shirt. A sort of disagreement arose with regard to the burial place. Abu Bakr said, I heard Allah say, a prophet is buried where he dies. So Abu Talha anhu lifted the bed on which he died, dug underneath and cut the ground for the grave. It was a laid type of grave which had a niche in the side. Went out the room 10 by 10. They prayed the funeral prayer. Never without an imam to lead the prayer. The first to pray for him were the people of his tribe, then the migrant, then the helpers. Women prayed for him after men. The young were the last to pray. This process lasted all day Tuesday and most of Wednesday until the night came. Children said, we did not know that the Prophet was being buried till we heard the sound of tools digging the ground at the depth of the night before